Okay, finally continuing after a long while. We've been away from this for a bit. 31st of December, last day of crazy 2020, beginning of crazy 2021.
Yeah.
And continuing our summary study of Bhagavad-gita with chapter 13, which is nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. So, the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad-gita are focused primarily on the living being, how he understands himself and operating his body with desire, karma, and controlling the mind, and so on. The second 6 chapters are the relationship of the living being with the Supreme Lord, and also getting to understand the Supreme Lord and who he is. And the third 6 chapters are about the living entity and his relationship with the material energy, primarily, but also more about the Lord and the living being's relationship with the Lord, particularly the relationship with the Lord in this body. So, 13, nature, the enjoyer, and consciousness. And like many of the chapters, Arjuna is asking questions for us. Chapter begins with Arjuna's question. Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, Purusha, the field, and the knower of the field, of knowledge, and the object of knowledge." So these, we have to understand the difference between principle and detail. And Arjuna is not asking about details here. He's asking about principles, basic spiritual principles. And so the field, the knower of the field, this is a broad concept. It's not a narrow idea, broad concept. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, this body is called the field, and one who knows his body is called the knower of the field. So, field of activities. We can think of that like a movie set. That's a good analogy, right? A movie, right? You're looking like this. And what's going on in the frame of the movie? Huh? That's the field. And who's the knower of the field? The director or the guy behind the camera, right? So that's for us, right? We're like in a movie like this, right? Only we're seeing through these eyes. We think the field is out there, but actually the field is here. This body and what's going on in the body. And the knower of the field is one who knows his body is called the knower of the field. It's the living being. And besides that, you should understand that I am also the knower of all bodies. And understand this body and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. So that's a very important, essential point. What is knowledge? What do they teach at university? Good God, what they teach now in university can hardly pass for knowledge. They teach all kind of crazy and even disgusting things. But to understand this body and its knower, this is knowledge. And whose opinion is that? Krishna's. And Krishna's God, so his opinion really counts. More than anybody else. So, real knowledge means to understand what's going on here. And so this chapter is explaining that. Now, Krishna says, please hear from me a description of this field of activity and how it's constituted, what its changes are, once it's produced. So he's going to talk all about the field, what's going on with that field. That knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. And it is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. So cause and effect, very important. Vedanta, this word, anta means the end. Veda means knowledge. So Vedanta means the end of all knowledge, or the culmination of knowledge. What's the goal of knowledge, basically? Vedanta. So Vedanta Sutra. Now, sutra is kind of like a code. It's a code word. It's a where there's a lot of knowledge packed into a little bit. So we could use as an analogy for sutra a word like microprocessor, right? We all have heard that word. We know our computer has one, or our phone has one, right? Microprocessor, but that's it. That's all we know. It's the brain of our computer. But electrical engineer can write books, many books about it, how it's working, how it's designed, and so many things like that. So there's word processor, microprocessor, that's like a sutra. It gives the idea. So sutras in spiritual knowledge, they are words like Bhagavan. Okay, Bhagavan is translated generally as God. But the word God does not convey the full meaning or understanding of Bhagavan. Did I say that right? God does not convey the full meaning of the word Bhagavan. So the Vedic sutras are expanded. They contain a lot of deep knowledge, information, and that can be expanded. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, one time he spoke on the first sloka from the Srimad Bhagavatam for several weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, right? And by the way, tomorrow is his appearance day.
Tomorrow?
Yeah, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta's appearance day, tomorrow. Half-day fast. So one time he spoke, he's just going on and on and on, because those Sanskrit words, they contain so much knowledge that you can think about it from this side, from that side, and so on like that. So these sutras, they can be, we say now, unpacked, right? That's the buzzword now. We can unpack them to bring many more nuances or subtle details out of them. And what about cause and effect? So, the 5 great elements: false ego, intelligence, the unmanifest, the 10 senses and the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms, and convictions. All these are considered in summary to be the field of activities and its interactions. So that's what's going on in this world. Basically, right there. To sum it up in one long sentence, everything that's going on in this world is contained there. And you can unpack that to explain everything, really. That's the field of activities. So what everybody's doing in this world can be understood by these points. So this is, again, these are the principles, not the detail. The principles by which everything can be understood. And now these next slokas, 8 through 12, again, further explanation of knowledge. And I memorized these at one time. I don't think I can remember. Humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with family, wife, children, home, the rest, even-mindedness among pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All of these I declare to be knowledge. And besides this, whatever there is, whatever may be, is ignorance. So there's your college courses right there. Right? Unfortunately, they don't teach any of that in college. So, they teach what the Old English word is called nescience. You know this word, nescience? N-E science. Ne science means basically ignorance. And that's what they teach today. Of course, it's a materialistic civilization that's controlled by demons and run for their purpose of controlling people. And so to control people, they degrade them so that they can't think. They have no intelligence. Then they become like animals. They become easy to control. So, yeah, I was, one time I had memorized, maybe, I don't know if I got all the way, but I had memorized most of them. Now, Krishna goes on about knowledge. Now I explain the knowable, knowing which you shall taste the eternal Brahman, the spirit, the beginningless and subordinate to me. It lies beyond the cause and effect of this material world. So earlier, right, Vedanta Sutra is talking about cause and effect. Now Krishna is going to talk about what's beyond cause and effect, what's beyond this world, that spiritual world, or Brahman. Brahman is the Sanskrit word for spiritual. So anytime you see Brahman, it has something to do with spiritual or transcendence, something like that. Everywhere are his hands and legs, his eyes, heads, and faces, and he has ears everywhere. In this way, the Supersoul exists, pervading everything. Now Krishna is going to get into explaining more about the relationship between himself and the living being, where in this material world. This is not about Krishna as the transcendental personality, like we saw in universal form or in chapter 10, where Krishna is explaining his various qualities. Here we're talking about Krishna's very intimate relationship with the living being, situated in his heart, the Supersoul of all living beings. And so for a number of slokas now, is going to go on explaining the nature of the Supersoul, how he lives in the body, what he is doing. It's interesting, that the demons, they're trying to become like God. And so they put these cameras everywhere. I think if you're in London, and any day you're going to go in front of like 300 cameras, something like that. So these, they want to be able to see everything and see what everybody's doing. So they're having cameras everywhere. So it's like this, Supersoul, right? Krishna is in everyone's heart. He knows what everybody's thinking and doing. He's the source of the senses, yet he is without senses. He is unattached. He's the maintainer of all living beings. He transcends the modes of nature. He's the master of nature. So this is back, we first heard about the Supersoul in chapter 6, where Krishna is saying that when one can bring the mind under control, then one can come in contact with the Supersoul. And it wasn't explained at that point, but here now it's being explained, that the Supersoul is the Lord in the heart who accompanies every living entity in every path of life. So the example is given like two birds sitting in a tree. Have you heard this? No? Two birds sitting in a tree, and one bird is enjoying all the fruit of the tree and the other one's witnessing. Have you heard? No. So we're like the living being. It's us and the Supersoul sitting in the heart. And we're trying to enjoy the fruits of this material world. We're busy, preoccupied with that. And the other bird is basically witnessing our activities and what we're doing. So it's a rough comparison. So this is us and the Supersoul. So he's observing all of our activities. And he's he's reminding us of what we wanted. In previous life, you desired to have this or that. Now go here and go there, you can do that. So he's helping us to fulfill our desires. He's neutral. He's not judging. He's not trying to force us to do anything. He's completely detached. He's the observer. He sees what we're doing, but he's reminding us of our purposes. What do we want? So he's later in 15th chapter, he says, I'm directing the wanderings of all living beings as if seated on a machine made of material energy. So Krishna is helping us to fulfill our desires. Nityo Nityanam. Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam Eko Bahunam Yo Viradhatikaman. There's one eternal among all eternals who's satisfying everybody's desires. So this is Krishna. So several slokas about the Supersoul, explaining. Then again, about the living being connected with the material energy in 22. Oh, let's go back to 20. Material nature and the living entities should be understood to be beginningless. Their transformations and the modes of nature are products of the material nature. Nature is said to be the cause of material causes, of all material causes and effects, whereas the living being is the cause of all the suffering in this world. So people ask, God, why do I have to suffer? The answer is, you created it. You're the problem. You can fix it, right? Oh, by the way, I just published my book online, my little book, Change the Karma. And it's a book written about nobody's happy in the world now, right? And everybody's finding some problem with COVID or being locked up or this or that, politics or whatever. And so the book is about, it's not just, we go and march in the street, and by marching in the street, we're going to change anything. According to a person's conception of life, they see cause and effect that way. So in the bodily conception of life, they see other bodies, other people as the cause of their suffering. It's the politician that did this, or the banker, or somebody like that, my boss, right? Somebody else, some other person is the cause of my problem because they're in the bodily conception of life. So the idea of this book of karma is to explain that there's another higher principle, a spiritual principle by which we create the result, or we create our own happiness and distress by our actions and our thoughts. And so it's just a little book you can read in an hour, but just getting it going. It was I published it several years ago in Europe when everybody was protesting about austerity. So the first edition was about austerity. So this one I just revamped it, changed the cover, and changed the first chapter to say it's about COVID. So, but basic idea. So the living entity is responsible for his suffering and enjoyment. If we're responsible, then we can change it. So change the karma. So, yet in this body there is another transcendental enjoyer who is the Lord, the supreme proprietor, who exists as the overseer and permitter and is known as the Supersoul. So here's the verses now that explain more about the Supersoul. Then, now Krishna is again going to speak about transcendence. We remember in earlier chapters there was different explanations Krishna gave about how to become transcendental to the world, how to rise up, become transcendental, and he's also repeating that again here. Number 26. Those who are not conversant, who may not be conversant with spiritual knowledge, but they worship the Supreme Person by hearing about him from others. Because of their tendency to hear from authorities, they also transcend the path of birth and death. O Chief of the Bharatas, know that whatever you see in all existence, both moving and non-moving, is only a combination of the field of activities and the knower of the field. So, again, this chapter of the living entity and its relationship with the material energy. Then more about the Supersoul. One who sees the Supersoul in all bodies and understands that neither the soul nor the Supersoul within the body is ever destroyed, actually sees. One who sees the Supersoul present everywhere and in every living being does not degrade himself by the mind. So this is an important thing. How to see with spiritual vision. That when we see all bodies, we see the Supersoul within. We see the soul, not the form. Our vision doesn't stop with the external form, but goes within. See, so this machine is animated by a spirit spark in the heart, along with the Supersoul. So by seeing the Supersoul in the heart, then one does not degrade himself by the mind. Otherwise, what's the mind? What does that mean? The mind wants to enjoy. When the mind sees something, how can I enjoy that? That thing is meant for me to enjoy. So this causes a degradation. So if one can have that transcendental vision of seeing the Supersoul and the soul, then you don't become bewildered by Maya. Okay? Continuing in the next sloka. When a sensible person ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies. This is a black man, this is a Chinese person, this is Russian, this is whatever, dog, cat, cow. Ceases to see different identities due to different material bodies and see how all beings are expanded everywhere. Same spiritual being, one, doesn't matter what kind of body. He attains to the Brahman conception. That means the spiritual sees with spiritual vision. The Brahman, spiritual conception of life. Those with a vision of eternity, same thing, spiritual vision, see that the imperishable soul is transcendental, eternal, beyond the modes of material nature. Despite contact with the material body, the soul neither does anything nor is entangled. This is an extremely important point. What can we do? We're a little spiritual energy situated in the heart. What can we do? We don't do anything. It's the hands are moving, the eyes, the head, the ears. This machine is working, right? We're doing nothing. We're sitting there perceiving it through the agency of the mind. And by identifying with the senses, the face, the looks, by identifying it with it, we come under the influence of happiness and distress. But we don't do anything. We sit there. We're just sitting there in the heart along with the Supersoul. So it's a whole show. It's like it's a movie. It's a show, right? Now, at the time of death, when we separate from the body, this life becomes like a dream. It's just like when we wake up in the morning, we're having such a vivid dream of some kind. We wake up and that's gone. After we leave this body, this life, which seems so real to us now, it will be gone. So we're doing nothing. We're enjoying the show. Or suffering. Huh? We relate. So, in this chapter, Krishna is teaching us how to see with spiritual vision, how to see things on the spiritual platform, not material. And by doing that, we separate ourselves from all the drama. Huh? It's like the movie, right? You go in the movie and people get all absorbed in the movie. They're identifying with the characters and everything. And then movie's over, the lights come on, and oh yeah, right, back to another reality. So that's what we're doing. We're identifying, we're in this drama that's got nothing to do with us.
This is so real.
Well, it is real, right? But it's not us. The my bodies, they want to, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
And we create this real life because this behind uzroky posljedice.
Previous
Previous and
previous
result,
activities and
yes,
desires.
and end result of our activities is our we make this, and we can change our habits, and we change the movie who is.
Yeah, exactly. Remember back in chapter 8, Krishna told Arjuna that the development of these material bodies is called karma. So he said the living entity is Brahman and the development of the material body is called karma. So by our previous actions and desires, we create karma. The karma generates this body that allows us to fulfill those desires.
But we can go out of the karma, of course.
That's, read my book, Change the Karma.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the whole point of Bhagavad-gita. How to become, right? How to see with transcendental vision, Brahman. See things in a spiritual perspective and not become trapped in the drama. So that's the last sloka. Again, how to attain transcendence. Those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body can understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature and attain to the supreme goal. So that's how you do it right there. You have to remind yourself all the time. What's going on? What's the reality? How to do that. So we have the reset program in the morning. You know the reset, just like you reset your computer or your phone. So we have in our morning program, we have the reset. We sing Mangalarti, we sing the prayers to the deities, chant Chapa. So you're welcome to come in the morning.
Sutra. Tomorrow morning.
Every morning, 6.
Every morning.
Rekao sam ti da ovo sad dok nema škole.
Aha, jer ja sam se probudila kad? Jučer i bio je mrak.
Bio je pravo je bio.
Aha, ja sam mislila da sam ja fulala.
Ne, to je svaki, inače sam nedeljom i morning.
Okay, I can, of course. Because I'm late.
Nikad možeš.
Look to see if my light's on.
Yeah.
If my light's not on,
Okay.
I had a rough night. Okay. All right. So we'll stop there. Any questions, comments, discussion?
I have not 1,000 examples of my life in my life of when I changed some habits and reality is changed like momently, and that is progress for step by step go out of the karma, because when you follow this knowledge and make the changes, every day can be different of the
From the previous one?
Yes.
Karma is very subtle, and even Krishna says very difficult to understand. So how is it working in it? We discussed earlier, it's very, very subtle how it's going on. But the idea is that because this whole thing, it doesn't happen immediately that we can give up our identification with the body.
No,
It takes time, purification. We have to purify our heart. Purify the heart means to purify our desires, to let go of our attachments for sense gratification of various kinds, and everything connected with the body. That's done by replacing all those things, with something connected to Krishna. Okay? Because we're persons, we can't just become void, like people, they try to meditate on nothing, they want to become nothing. It's just, you can't do it. It's very, some do it, but it's very, very hard, Krishna even says. But it's not natural. Our natural thing is to be involved with people, to do things, have joy, have desires. So you can't eliminate desire. It's simply a matter of changing desire so that we desire those things that are in relationship with God, or that will help us to become healthy. We're in a diseased condition of spiritual life right now. And the symptom of that disease is the material body. So the disease comes because we all have desire for affection. And the natural object of that affection is Krishna. But what we've done is we've forgotten about Krishna, and we've made material energy the object of our desire. So by trying to embrace the material energy and get pleasure from the material energy, we keep ourselves in a diseased condition of spiritual life. So the way we become healthy is to let go of that material energy and to transfer that attachment to Krishna and everything related to Krishna. So it's kind of a cultural process. We have to understand or learn the culture of the spiritual world and what goes on there. And then gradually letting go and transferring that attachment to Krishna.
Yes, and our feelings like angry or jealousy or another this low energy is very dangerous for body, for health of the body, because these emotions make in our body some hormones who is not good for our body, like cortisol. When we have lots of anger in mind, the cortisol and adrenaline is overdose in our blood, and this hormone is not good for our body to the long
Yeah, it has long-term effect.
Yes, in a short time, in short action is very nice because saved our life, but in a long distance, day to day and years and decades, we stay in this mindset, and then body go down because the mind is not with the Krishna. The mind is in a problem, and the mind doesn't see the how can go out of this problem, because look on the problem, not look on the Krishna and this knowledge, look on the problem, and that is very. I have experience of these very big problems I have with my body before 30 years, and that is a process go out of this. I have some guilty or shame or that is very long way to go out of these low energies to come to the healthy state.
Yeah.
But it's possible.
Yeah.
How we can know that this shloka 28 and last one also, how we can know that I see this and I understand this, and how can I know that I really understand? Isn't, last two verses in 28.
Actually sees?
Actually, yeah. How can I know?
Well,
that I
it
actually
doesn't.
see?
Okay. This is metaphorical. Okay, what are we seeing? In other words, we interpret whatever is in front of these eyes, we interpret it in some way. Okay? We can interpret it as bodies, right? It's a dog, it's a person, it's a woman, man, right? Or we interpret it as spiritual beings in a dog's body, in a woman's body, in a man's body, like this.
Okay.
So that's what he means by seeing. What are we interpreting? What is our conception when we see those beings?
Okay.
When we see those things?
I know I am not this body. She's not this body. I'm not this body. But is that really no? What,
It doesn't mean that you see the soul. I see.
Okay.
We have X-ray vision, right?
yeah.
We see the soul and say, "Oh yeah, Supersoul in there."
Yeah.
No, it's just we remember. You're not the body. She's not the body.
We are internal beings.
Yeah.
That is-
So we remember like that, and that's our. So we're relating or perceiving that. The example I give, it's like maybe I don't know how it applies to women, but men like to enjoy the beauty of a woman. All men do. It's natural, right? So if you see, this is my class that I give to the brahmacharis, right? When you see that body, you see the supersoul and the soul there. And then everything changes, right? Because, it's you snap out of Maya. And you stop trying to enjoy the beauty. So, so seeing, no, you can't see the spiritual being, but this is the interpretation.
I understand it.
Yeah. And you said something about the last sloka too?
Well, yeah, this.
Oh, sees with the eyes
Similar.
of knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, the difference between the body and the knower of the body. Right. Same exact point.
Yeah.
Right. So, seeing with eyes of knowledge. This is called Shastra Chakshusha. Right. Shastra Chakshusha, seeing through the eyes of Shastra.
Yeah.
What are we learning? So Bhagavad-gita Shastra is teaching us. So when we see like that, this is Shastra Chakshusha. Okay. All right. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.